tables is really appreciated. And why don't we just go ahead and get started? Oh, here's Professor Kemp. Great. So we're gonna, I'm gonna have AJ and Pat LeMay join us on stage as the co-creators, and we have our actors, and we have Michael Penn. So I'm gonna give the microphone to you. And I can't see anything, so Michael, I'm gonna ask you to call people about it.
Sure, wonderful. So we are just here to receive any questions or comments or observations you want to make.
So all three of these characters were historical figures, and of course Phyllis Wheatley becoming the most famous, but the other ladies were not known. So Abby J, I found out about via footnotes in a larger story, in only one book, and I couldn't find any other material on her. And so there was an editor at the Benjamin Franklin papers who actually translated some of the French letters for me so I could understand the story and then create her character. And then Hannah, she's referred to in John Woolman's diary, which is a famous book. It's still in publication now, but he never refers to her by name. So the idea was to tell the stories of people who are kept on the margins, to put them in the center and how might they have thought and what they might have felt. So thank you for asking, and thank you for coming.
The question was, what can I tell you about the music? When we picked the music originally, it was designed so that it would flow with the way Amanda had written the show. If you noticed in the Hannah story, about her losing her child, the choir was singing from the perspective of the child that had lost her mother. Thus, sometimes I feel like a motherless child. We did "Oh Freedom" in the third story about Abby when she was locked in the jail cell in France. And we tried to make it so it wasn't like a musical where you had, razzle-dazzle, song and then all of a sudden some action, but that it flowed, that it was woven through the action and woven through the play that Amanda had written so well. So the goal was that the music would start in Africa, like the Fonte story did with the Gaba de Keke we did at the beginning in Dry Your Tears Africa. And then as the story progressed into the East American coast, that the music did as well. And that you could feel the story not just in the action and in the drama, but also in the music as well. Both choirs have been working on the music since last September. We did a performance in November with both choirs, one at the Lancaster Quilt Museum across the street, and one at Church of the Apostle, which is the home for the Lancaster City Choir. And we've been building repertoire and just refining, and with this process, once we integrated the music into the show, it was more just making cuts for time so that, the music wouldn't be too long and that the drama would still stand. So that it wouldn't interfere with the story. But it took a while, and the one choir actually is non-audition and anyone can join and there's no attendance requirement. So, we depend on people to come to rehearsal and hope people learn the music in time, but I think because of the sheer just awesomeness of the script, it propelled people to want to be a part of the project that much more in both choirs. So we always had good attendance, we always had good vocal balance, and I think it really paid off for the show.
Thank you, Jason. Jason has been in a version and Show Me the Franklins, which we traveled with for about 5 years. So with one of the ladies who talks in the third person, so that would be Fonte or Rita. They talk in the third person. Would you guys like to talk about it?
Well, quite simply, I'm an actor, so my job is to do what the director tells me to do. I'm not going to say that it was easy. I think it's a pretty difficult process. Sometimes when you kind of remove yourself and you're talking in this third person, you don't stay connected. But I think that's what Pat does so wonderfully, is that she helped us bring that out, so that yes, we are telling a story. We are the main characters in the story, but hopefully, according to you anyway, it came off okay. So. Yeah, it is. It's a fine line. You've already stated that, but I think it's maybe Pat should answer that.
Well, for me, primarily, I'm a storyteller. That's my profession. So I'm used to coming out and telling stories either in first person or third person or whatever. And for me, in order to make this come alive. I just needed to connect with what was going on, and even though the words that were coming out of my mouth were told from a spectator standpoint, I was feeling them and living them, so I was able to hopefully project that in a way that made you feel that as well as see it.
You did. She asked, what do the words mean to the songs? For Dry Your Tears Africa, that is a poem that song is actually by John Williams. It was used in the movie Amistad. And the poem, translates to Dry Your Tears Africa, your children are coming home, hold on, hold on. Gaba de Keke that you heard in the beginning when the choir broke out the sashes and people were dancing. If you notice with that song, it sounds a lot like percussion. And that song is used in West Africa to teach children rhythm. So the term, for example, Gaba de Keke can be spoken on a drum as ba-boom, ba-boom, boom, ba-boom, ba-boom, boom. So it was using vocables to tell what the drum sounds were, like ba-doom, ba, translates the drum as a ba sound and then a soul sound. So the other songs I believe were all in English, but for those two songs specifically, Shoshaloza. Shoshaloza is actually a South African song, and it translates to hold the train. That train is leaving for South Africa. Yeah, we're going to use those as a joyous kind of encore ending to the show. Well, you know, we presented this last summer. I think it was August and September when Amanda did all the characters and I did all the music with the djembe and just my voice. And at the time, we like this version better, and the choir does too. Of course, any kind of production, large-scale production like this takes a lot of time and effort from people. And I'm sure it'd be great to present this on a larger level. Kenny's that would be fantastic, actually. Yeah, definitely. It would take some time, but it's definitely something to consider for the future. Absolutely.
Well, we are going to go to Chester next week. No, 2 weeks from Thursday. We'll be in Chester with the smaller ensemble. And so that would be just yet another version. Pat and I call that, maybe that's version 3. And so, right, because, you know, a show like this went from 2 people, me and AJ, to 75 people. Now it's going to go down to, I think, 5 of us in Chester. And, but we would like to do it again in the community. And in fact, we got some seed money to allow us to do that from the Walters Unitarian Church Trust. So I don't know when we'll do that, but they wanted to see us do it again, and so we would love to do it again. If you actually want to have us come somewhere, like your school or your church or your college, you can, again, if you go to the Theater for Transformation table, just leave your name and information, because we're a touring company, that's what we do. Thank you, that's fun. So let's start with Abby. I was interested in Benjamin Franklin and slavery. And she came up in this one text that dealt with the subject, and I just wanted to know more about her. And while I was away at the Spiritual Retreat Center, she spoke to me, and I just wrote down. In fact, Hannah spoke to me too at the same retreat center. And I remember when Abby spoke, though, I was kind of embarrassed by her story because she's sexual. I mean, so part of the way that she dealt with her enslavement was using what she had to be free. And so we didn't do Abby's version of the play with Abby telling the story that way. We didn't do that version for a while because I was playing that character. And I didn't really want to. But Nakisha had no problem. So she told it with a lot of humor. And so what impressed me about Abby was her fight. And I felt compelled that this story be told, that it no longer be locked into footnotes. So that was Abby's story. And also I think it's important to tell stories about people who aren't like heroic in that sense of They felt they never had any doubts, and they never, I just didn't want to tell a story like that. I want to tell stories like people, real people. So Abby, so that was Abby's story. And then Fonte, I taught Phyllis Wheatley, and I know a lot of you have read Phyllis Wheatley, and you came across her in college. At least I hope you did. And but we always talk about Phyllis Wheatley as if from when she showed up in Boston, when she got off the boat. And so I wanted to consider, who was this child before she got here? What was her life like? What was her name? I mean, we talk about her name as if that was her given name. And so I just wanted to root her somewhere else, to have another starting point. And that would give us more insight to her as a person. So that's what was, to me, with Phyllis Wheatley. And that actually came from a question that a child asked on a webinar we did. Was only kids on the call, and one of the kids said, "What happened to her? What happened to her parents?" And also they started me thinking about Phyllis Wheatley, not as Phyllis Wheatley, but as a child in a family who had lost a child. So that's where that story came from. And then Hannah, Quakers are known for being abolitionists. And you know what they say? That's true, or that's true, but what else? So there was John Woolman being one of the most famous and influential, like we said. But before he got to that point, something tragic happened. And so I wanted to tell the story from Hannah's point of view, rather than, again, from the heroic point of view of the abolitionist, the guy who made the right decision. Before he made that decision, he made another decision that was very tragic. So, and I was thinking about these people, especially Hannah, as when I think about slavery, what I think a lot about is my children, not being able to protect your children. And so that's what was happening for me with that story.
One thing that I think is important, one thing that I think is important, is it? Yeah. Okay. One thing that is really important for me to understand, and I get asked this question a lot. Obviously, I cannot tell you what the response would be if I were white. But I can tell you that I've never been enslaved. So this is a story that I have to work into, just like anybody else. It may be a part of our history, everyone's history that lives in this country, but I have to work into it as well. So when I look at stories that portray characters like Hannah, I look at it from the human perspective. Not so much that she was a black woman, because the way that I think is the way that I think. It isn't just because of being black, it's because I'm Rita Clark and the experiences that I had. So when I looked at this character, I thought of it as a woman who had lost something, and then she opened herself up to this young man because she had lost her own son, and then the betrayal that she felt when he sold her. So the emotions that I went through and the way that I prepared for it was, I would think, be like almost any mother that was losing her child and losing her ability to control her life. And so it's kind of like, I don't necessarily think, well, because I'm black, I have to think of it this way. I'm thinking of it this way because this is my reaction, my visceral reaction to what is being done to me, what is being put in front of me. And that's how I got into this part and how I looked at it. And her circumstance happened to be that she was a slave, and the things that were being done to her were being done because of that. But anybody who has lost a child, anyone who has been taken away because of reasons they have no control over, was my motivation for connecting with people.
And as actors and director, you have to empathize with the material. And as Rita was saying, these are universal feelings. Situations change, but the feelings are the same. And it was very easy to connect with those feelings as a director and as the cast.
I recently found out through, those DNA websites or, whatever. I swabbed my brother's cheek and we found out that our ancestors are actually from West Africa. And my ancestors are part of the Yoruba tribe. And I'm just sharing that just to share it. It certainly wasn't a factor though in this portrayal. I think maybe because I'm African American, I know so many stories about African American ancestors who endured some pretty horrible stuff. But I think for me, here I was playing this 11, 12-year-old girl, and so that's where I felt like the emotion comes from. I don't have a 12-year-old child. I'm not around 12-year-olds a lot, but just to imagine what that would have been like for her to have been taken from, her home, her family, things that were familiar to her, and put on a boat, and she had no idea where she was going. So I think as an actor, you're given this script, you are given direction, and you try really hard to make it believable. You try really hard to connect. And so I think all of those things played a factor for me. I wonder too, if I were Jewish and I was in, I played Anne Frank, the Diary of Anne Frank, if it would have been any different, I'm not sure. But we know so many stories about that culture of people too, that in some way, shape, or form it has to influence how you portray that particular character.
In looking at the script for Abby, I think I connected more with the fact that she was a woman who loved this man who she thought loved her back. And just the amount of anger that she had towards this man who was supposed to save her from this dungeon, he spoils her. He says he's going to free her. So just kind of getting into that, like how would I feel if this was me? I love this person and they didn't come and save me. So I think I looked at it more from that woman perspective. I don't think I really focused on the fact that I didn't look at it from like this slavery perspective, but more of this really hurt woman who was expecting all these things in this relationship that she didn't get. So.
I'll just say something very quick. Working with the music was an interesting challenge. Most of the choir members were white, and teaching the music, it required a lot of emotion from me to get it across, because it's not just about black songs and slave songs, but these songs are part of our American history and American heritage, and knowing the song is one thing, but singing the song in the sense that you are on a ship of souls, a ship of lost souls, and not just as a slave, but just as a person who connects with the story that's happening, who is on this ship for whatever reason. That's what we had to get across to our choir, was that you're not just a choir member, and you're not supposed to play a black person, but you are supposed to sing this song with the same pride and the same feeling that a person who had sung it, in the 1700s or 1800s would have. I myself have learned these songs actually from being in the Boys Choir Philadelphia. It wasn't in, the Baptist church or where have you, but, learning the different arrangements. And, what you heard tonight was concert spirituals and congregational spirituals. Concert spirituals are those that have many parts, like Soon I Will Be Done was a concert spiritual. A congregational spiritual, like I Know I've Been Changed, where you have one part kind of over the harmony. But whatever style you do, whatever spiritual song you do, there's a connection that has to be made beyond the notes on the page, but how you deliver the song to an audience or to someone who's listening to you.
Good night.